Hey YouTube, Common Collector here, and today I am bringing you guys my dual avatar deck profile. This is a profile I've wanted to bring for a very long time because this deck primarily came out back in Phantom Rage, back in like November of last year, and I just never got around to profiling it. I've tested around with it for a long time, but I actually recently just rewatched Avatar: The Last Airbender, and I'm on my first watch through of The Legend of Korra, so I sort of had the Avatar bug, if you will. So I really wanted to finally bring you guys this profile, and I really like sort of what I've done with the deck, how it runs. It's a really cool, obviously fusion-based deck, and it runs sort of in a control style. There's a lot of neat interactions you can do with stuff like Super Poly and stuff, obviously, because it is a fusion deck. So anyways, without any further ado, let's just get on into the deck profile. And also, let me know in the comments what you guys think, for any of you Avatar fans, if you guys think that the dual Avatar feet and the fists are, in my opinion, my headcanon is that these are like representatives of Zuko and Katara from Avatar: The Last Airbender, because they just like look so similar. But anyways, but we don't have elements. These are not fire and water attributes. They are light. So just keep in mind that the whole deck is light. So with Super Poly, it doesn't sometimes always go off because you don't always have like that extra dark target for Starving Venom and stuff. But there are some really neat interactions. So anyways, let's get on into the profile. We have our 3 copies of the feat. So with the feat, what you can do with this is when it's normal or special summoned, you add a dual avatar trap from your deck to your hand, which is really nice because there are some really powerful traps for the deck. Then also, while this card is in your hand, if one of your dual avatar fusion monsters, or sorry, not doesn't have to specifically be a fusion monster, just any dual avatar monster is destroyed by battle or card effect, you're able to special summon this from your hand and then destroy a dual avatar monster that is on the field, and then you're able to you tribute or destroy that monster in order to special summon another dual avatar fusion monster from your extra deck, which is a really nice mechanic to be able to just really spam out your fusions to be able to like go into them a lot quicker and easier, because this deck doesn't even have technically a polymerization for the deck. It runs off of its own other spell card, which lets you fusion summon. So just having an alternate way to be able to go into your fusions is really, really nice. And then we do have some added effects later that we will get to with the other cards in the deck that sort of get activated when there's a monster that was fusion summoned or special summoned by the effect of a monster. So we'll get to that in a minute. Here we have our 3 copies of dual avatar Fist Yuhi. So this card is really similar, but with him, when he's on the field, you're able to destroy one of your dual avatar monsters in order to add a dual avatar spell from your deck to your hand. So this adds a trap on summon, and this adds a spell by destroying a monster, which is a little bit worse, but it's okay because these spells are what really helps the deck go off. So I think that it does make sense that this one requires a little bit of a cost. And then, like I mentioned, some of these gain effects if you summon a monster off of the feat. So if you do summon a fusion monster off of a monster's effect, then if this card is in your graveyard and that card is destroyed by battle or a card effect, you're able to add this back to your hand, which is nice to be able to get him back, because again, like I said, getting to the spell card of the deck is really, really important. Then that is literally it for the monster engine of the deck. So I'm just playing a few hand traps just to help sort of control the game state. We have Droll and Lockbird just because obviously right now in this format, if you're playing this deck, it's a little bit more of a casual deck, but if you are playing up against some decks that are a little bit more powerful, like Drytron, stuff like that, you might want stuff like Dual Avatar, or Droll and Lockbird. And then we have our 2 copies of Ash Blossom. You could bump this up to 3, but the deck was starting to get really tight, and I didn't want to run into too many hand traps, so I thought that was fine. Then we have our field spell for the deck, which is Perfect Sinkaun. A really important thing to note here is that this card is not technically a dual avatar card, so you can't add it to your hand with the fists. But with this card, when it's activated, you can add a dual avatar monster from your deck to your hand, which is nice because it can sometimes help you get into your feat, which is sometimes a little bit harder to get into. And then also, once per turn, you're able to special summon a dual avatar spirit token to your side of the field, as long as you have another dual avatar monster on the field, which is a really nice way to be able to get extra your destruction fodder for your fists, or like a another monster to destroy for your feet. So it is nice. Sometimes the token isn't super useful, but sometimes it is nice just to get that extra body on board. And in the OTS 14, we did get a really cool dual avatar spirit token, so I really like these. I like having 5 of these on my hands at all times, because you can actually get a whole bunch of tokens out with this next card, which is the Dual Avatar Invitation. This is your best spell card of the deck by far, because with this card, you discard 1 card and then special summon as many of your Dual Avatar Spirit tokens as possible onto the field. And then after that, you're able to conduct up to 2 fusion summons, which is really cool. So this is basically your fusion card of the deck. This is your polymerization. But yeah, so this is just really cool. It's just a really amazing way to get out 5 free monsters, and then you're able to do up to 2 fusion summons, which is really, really important for the deck, because this deck relies on getting out some really good fusion monsters. Then we have our 2 copies of Dual Avatar Defeating Evil. This card is pretty cool. It is a quick play spell card. Lets you target a dual avatar monster and then destroy it, along with 1 card that your opponent controls. And then if you destroy a fusion monster of yours, then you're able to draw a card or banish 1 card from your opponent's graveyard. So one of those 2 effects. It is just nice to be able to draw an extra card. It's a little bit tough that you have to like destroy a fusion monster for that. I wish that this card was just a little bit better, but still, it's okay to just try to like do a little bit of spot removal and be able to get some extra advantage off of that. Then we have our 3 copies of Fusion Deployment. The reason why I saved this profile until now is because Fusion Deployment should hopefully be getting a reprint in the Megatins in about a month or so. So I thought that it was okay to bring you guys this. This card's sitting at about $13 right now, but I would expect that soon it'll probably go down to like a $5 card, as long as its rarity doesn't go like higher in the Megatins. So I think that it'll be okay, or it could even go lower than $5, which would be really nice. So Fusion Deployment lets you basically summon out either of these 2 cards by showing off one of their monsters that actually requires them as a fusion material. So it can't be for a generic monster, but it just lets you special summon out a free monster onto the board. Then we have our 3 copies of Super Poly. I already said that this is just really nice. I stayed away from generic cards like Supply Squad and whatnot. A lot of people like that because there's so much destroying in this deck. However, I just thought that with this deck, you really need to have like the high impact cards in order to break through your opponent's board, because this is a bit more of a going second deck, and like this deck is just a little bit more easy to like break the boards. Like these cards aren't indestructible, they don't have great protection effects, and so you basically need to break through your opponent's board and make sure that that sticks. And like using these high impact cards like Droll and Lockbird, Super Poly and stuff like that are really, really helpful. Whereas like Supply Squad might only let you like draw like 1 or 2 cards off of that, and then it's kind of gone. I just really like Super Poly for making those high impact plays. Then we have our 2 copies of Pot of Desires. I considered putting this to 3, but sort of like what I do with like my Salamangreat build and some other decks, like I like to run Pot of Desires at 1 or 2 copies, especially in decks like this where you don't want to get rid of too many of your resources. It's nice to maybe use like a Fusion Deployment, get like your fists or your feet out of the deck, and then use Pot of Desires to draw into more stuff. You just want to get out your like engine cards out as soon as possible before you use Desires. 1 Terraforming to get into our field spell quicker, which basically your field spell will let you get into your fists, and then your fists will let you get into your fusion spell card. 1 copy of Reinforcement of the Army, 1 Called by the Grave, just to make sure that our searches go through and stuff like that. Then for the traps, we have our 3 copies of Dual Avatar Impact. This card is super duper good because during the main phase, you're able to banish a dual avatar spell or trap from your graveyard, and then this card's effect becomes the effect of that card. So it lets you basically reuse your dual avatar invitation as much as you want, which is really, really cool. The one thing that I will say about this though is that you need to make sure that you remember that the discard is not a cost for dual avatar invitation. It's like the whole effect. So when your dual avatar compact copies the effect, you just need to make sure that you keep in mind that the compact will still make you discard. So it is a little bit unfortunate, but I think that Konami definitely did that on purpose to make sure that you're not like getting to fusion summon all this stuff off for free. So it does come with a little bit of a cost. Then we have our dual avatar Ascendance. This card basically lets you like swap out your dual avatar monster that is currently on the field for a monster that is one level higher or one lower. So it is nice to be able to, like, for instance, you have your one guy, which is the level 6 dual avatar Fists Armored Agio, and then you can, like, send him to go into, like, your Mitsujaku, which is really nice. So you get a little destruction, and then you can go for something that's a little bit more floodgatey or can make some more impactful plays. But we'll get onto that in a minute. But then it also does have another effect that you can banish this trap card from the graveyard in order to add one of your dual avatar monsters from your graveyard back to your hand, which is nice for either recycling your fusion monsters or just getting back a fist or a feat to your hand. Then we have our dual avatar return, which is basically your monster reborn. So target a dual avatar monster in your graveyard, special summon it, and then if its level is 4 or lower, you can special summon a dual avatar spirit token. So again, just more token advantage, which is really, really cool. Then we have our 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence for our, making this a 40 card deck. I just really like Imperm here, but it is not like mandatory. You can play other stuff like Dark Ruler No More, or if you're on a budget, Effect Veiler, stuff like that, just to make sure that you can sort of get through any board that your opponent made that is going to be like making floodgates or negates, stuff like that. So Imperm is just really, really good for that. Moving on into the extra deck, we have our 3 copies of Dual Avatar Fists Armored Agio, otherwise known as Zuko. I mean, look at him. He's firebending right here. He even has the ponytail. There's no way that's not Zuko. So anyways, he is fairly generic. What he does is that his fusion is required by 2 dual avatar monsters, and then when he's special summoned, you can target one attack position monster that your opponent controls and destroy it. However, he cannot attack for the rest of the turn. But it is very important to note that it's only when he's special summoned, so it doesn't have to be off of a fusion summon. So it is nice off of like your trap card, the dual avatar return. You can bring him back and then sort of disrupt your opponent's plays, or even with the dual avatar compact, you can banish the fusion spell and then be able to fusion during your opponent's turn, and then go into him and pop something like your opponent's Verte Anaconda. If they're trying to go into Dragoon, just pop the Anaconda before it gets its effect off. So it is really neat. He's really, really nice. Helps with the aggressiveness of the extra decks. That's why I like him at 3 copies. Then he does have an extra effect to where if you summon a monster off with your feet, so you have a fusion monster summoned from the effect of another effect monster, then all of your dual avatar monsters gain 300 attack and defense, which is nice to be able to get your guys a little bit beefier. Or your Mitsujaku has a really, really high defense, so if you're trying to wall up for some reason, you can also go into the Mitsujaku and have like I think like a 3,300 defense. Yeah, it's like really awesome that like she's just got such high defense. Then so like the firebenders are more of like your aggressive guys, and then like your waterbenders are the ones who are a little bit more for protection. So we have our Armored Ungio. So what she does, she's also generic for her 2 dual avatar monster fusion requirement. And then you have, with her effects, if a dual avatar fusion monster would be destroyed by an opponent's card effect, she can basically protect them by destroying a different dual avatar monster. So it's really nice to be able to just like pop one of your extra tokens. So it's really important with your field spell and with your dual avatar return to make sure that you always get those token effects off, because then you'll have extra like destruction fodder for her effect. Then also, if there's a monster summoned on the field with feet, and your opponent has a monster summoned from the extra deck, then you can just negate that monster's effect, which is really cool. She's one of the best like negations for the deck, which is really, really important, because this deck doesn't do much for negation. It just does stuff like disruption and whatnot. So I really think that she is actually really, really powerful. Then we have our 2 copies of the dual avatar Empowered Kungyo. Basically with him, he's very battle centric. So if your opponent, if you battle an opponent's monster, then your opponent cannot activate card effects until the end of the damage step. And then after he attacks, after damage calculation, you're able to pop one of your opponent's monsters back to the hand, which is really nice. If there's a certain thing that you don't want going into the graveyard or something, you can just pop it, or obviously pop something back to the extra deck if it is an extra deck monster. Then also, if there are 2 or more dual avatar fusion monsters on the field and your opponent targets him, you can just negate that effect. I wish that was a little better. I wish it was like if your opponent targets anything while there's 2 fusions, it would be a lot better, because like if your opponent has something that's going to target and you have him on the field, they're just not going to target him. They're going to target something else and then make it so he is targetable again. So I don't know why they really did that effect, but he's okay. The really good, like, heart and soul of the deck is actually the Empowered Mitsujaku, in my opinion. She's really good. So these two guys, their fusion requirements are, he requires the fists and then 2 dual avatar monsters, and then she requires, or actually it is still a he, even though I think it looks like Katara. I'm going to stop talking about avatar now. But the Mitsujaku requires the dual avatar feet, and also 2 dual avatar monsters, so those are generally going to be your tokens. But with her, when she is on the field, you can bounce all of your opponent's spell and traps back to the hand, which is really, really amazing. Just once per turn during the main phase, you can do that. And then also with her, the first time that your opponent is going to try to destroy any of your dual avatar fusion monsters by battle, it is not destroyed. So just for the first time. So, and that's for each monster, which is really, really cool, just to add some extra protection. And then lastly, she has an effect as well if there are 2 or more fusion monsters on the field, 2 or more of the dual avatar, or no, it doesn't have to be specifically a dual avatar, just 2 fusion monsters, which is really cool. So she has a quick effect. If you have 2 or more fusions on the field and your opponent activates a monster effect, you can just destroy that monster. So she's kind of like a ghost ogre, which is really cool, just to be able to pop some additional stuff off the field. The only downside is that she does not negate the effect. Then lastly, for our super poly targets, pretty generic, but we have our Starving Venom, our Mud Dragon of the Swamp, and then our Predaplant Dracostapelia. These cards are just really, really good and generic. And then for the more specific ones, specific like for the format, we have our Draco Neko Nether Soul, because a lot of people still like playing Eldritch. We have our World Chalice Guard Dragon, and then a Draco Knight Equist. This one's really not very specific. There's a lot of other really good targets you guys could play. Salamangrates are definitely seeing a lot more play nowadays, so you guys could definitely put that in. Some of these cards could be like in the side deck, you know, if you don't want to put anything specific in your extra deck. But overall, these are just the ones that I've been messing around with, and they come up every now and then. So yeah, guys, I think that's going to do it for the deck profile. I really hope you guys enjoyed this one. I've been loving playing around with this. It's really fun to just mess around with this deck, and it's so cool. Like, it's one of the things I really loved about Evil Eyes is that it's got such a small monster engine. You're just running this whole deck off of these 2 monsters and then going into your extra deck plays and stuff and doing some really powerful things. So I think that it's really cool. It's such a small monster engine, and then the spell and traps really help the deck get its gas going. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys enjoyed the video, make sure that you guys are subscribed to the channel if you guys haven't already, and like the video, and let me know down in the comments what other deck profiles you guys want to see. This deck should be getting a reprint even in the upcoming Megatins, along with, again, I said, Fusion Deployment should be getting a reprint here in the Megatins as well. So these cards will be extremely accessible to people, so you guys can probably make this deck for like 50 bucks in a couple of weeks. So let me know what you guys think about this deck, and yeah, we will catch you guys for the next one. Peace.